Welcome to Beyond the Text, the podcast dedicated to exploring intellectual history with depth and context. In a world filled with quick takes, we're here to dive deeper. I'm your host, Samuel Woodall, and in each episode, we'll uncover overlooked aspects of historical and intellectual narratives. Join us as we voyage into the evolution of ideas, tracing the influences that shape them and uncovering their profound impact on the world. So let's embark on this journey together, transcending the confines of words and delving into the essence of thought. Join me as we venture beyond the text to discover the hidden stories that shape our understanding. Welcome to the first episode of Beyond the Text, entitled By the Book, The Rules of Intellectual History. This edition is indebted to the work and teaching of Professor Richard Whatmore. I began studying intellectual history under Professor Whatmore's guidance last year, and it all commenced with a simple question: how do we approach intellectual history? Travelling back to the 1960s, a period of change, a group of scholars introduced the Cambridge School. This group included notable names like Quentin Skinner, John Pocock, and Peter Laszlo. Their approach sparked a new way of looking at history, challenging us to explore the ideas of the past in fresh ways. Skinner's contextual method became a foundation for how my peers and I approached intellectual history. It's about understanding an author's work within the context of their time, avoiding the trap of projecting our own views onto historical figures. The Cambridge School had a clear goal: to avoid the pitfall of judging historical ideas within modern moral standards. They encouraged historians to become detectives of the past, examining the conversations and societal influences that shaped thinkers' ideas. But there was more to it. The Cambridge School also aimed to break down the hierarchy of important texts. This was about acknowledging the broader spectrum of political discourse from a given era, going beyond the limited selection of texts that were traditionally seen as pivotal. Professor Whatmore's perspective, outlined in his work What is Intellectual History, encourages us to explore a diverse range of ideas from a specific period. It's not just about tracing the origin of opinions, but also understanding the depth of their impact. This approach helps us avoid the notion that history is a straight line, leading inevitably to today's beliefs. So get ready for a thought-provoking journey. In future episodes, through the lens of the Cambridge School, we'll untangle the complexities of intellectual history, free from bias, and gain a clearer insight into how ideas have shaped our world. Stick around as we venture into the past and piece together the puzzle of intellectual history. As with any field of study, intellectual history has seen its fair share of branches and evolution, often mirroring shifts in the broader realms of arts and humanities. A significant turning point came with the rise of postmodern literary criticism, an intellectual movement that brought about a new direction in the landscape of thought analysis. The post-structural ideas that emerged within intellectual history were closely intertwined with the works of prominent figures like Michel Foucault and Leo Strauss. Their focus on dissecting ideas within ideological contexts marked the inception of a unique school of thought. In particular, Foucault's and Strauss's works laid the foundation for delving into the intricate relationships between thought and the societal frameworks that shaped them. In this intellectual milieu, the influence of Jacques Derrida's groundbreaking text of grammatology was palpable. Derrida's assertion that there is nothing outside of the text resonated deeply with intellectual historians, reshaping the way they approach their craft. Dominic Le Capra, among these historians, took Derrida's concepts to heart. He challenged the traditional emphasis on authorial intention, as championed by the likes of Quentin Skinner. For Le Capra, it wasn't solely about discerning an author's intent. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the text itself, exploring its role as a cultural artifact with profound impacts. In rethinking intellectual history, Le Capra critiques the oversimplification inherent in attempting to confine a thinker within their historical context. His work raises a fundamental question that has troubled many of us venturing into intellectual history. What's the underlying purpose of this pursuit? While respecting the painstaking efforts of scholars like Skinner to comprehend thinkers within their temporal confines, Le Capra pushes us to consider the broader ramifications of ideas. This introspection becomes particularly relevant as we grapple with contemporary issues of race, sexuality, class, and various forms of oppression. In a world re-evaluating historical narratives, the work of intellectual historians gains new significance. Le Capra's perspective resonates deeply with those of us who seek to understand how the debates of the past have left an indelible imprint on our present political climate. As I traverse the realms of intellectual history, Le Capra's work has captured my attention. For someone keen on comprehending how the echoes of historical debates reverberate through time to shape our modern reality, postmodernism provides a crucial lens. In an age where we dissect the remnants of old debates to fathom the foundation of today's socio-political landscape, the significance of intellectual history becomes clearer than ever before. A foundational consideration that has persisted from the early days of intellectual history revolves around the question of whether it's possible to establish an objective history, or if all historical narratives are fundamentally mythology, structures we construct to make sense of the past. This dichotomy has been a constant thread shaping divergent approaches to the craft. Among my colleagues, the prevailing perspective tends to lean toward the conviction that diligent effort and time can uncover an objectively factual history. They believe that through rigorous research and analysis, the layers of time can be peeled back to reveal a pristine historical truth. However, my perspective diverges, aligning more closely with the belief that all historical accounts, no matter how rigorously constructed, are inherently influenced by our own preconceptions, paradigms, and even mythologies. My stance is rooted in the insights I gained during my undergraduate dissertation, particularly from reading Karl Popper's intellectual autobiography, Unended Quest. Popper succinctly encapsulates my viewpoint by asserting that even our theories, the product of our intellect, emerge through the critical engagement with myths, which in turn are the products of our imagination. In essence, our theories and narratives are interwoven with the very myths we seek to comprehend. This awareness of living by myths, interpreting history through myths, and acknowledging the absence of an entirely objective history is what infuses history reading with its undeniable allure. It underscores the captivating essence of history as we grapple with the intricacies of human interpretation and narrative construction. An ironic twist arises in my affinity for Popper's ideas in shaping my intellectual history perspective. Popper's narrative tendencies, while influential, played a part in shaping John Pocock's concept of reading history conceptually. Paradoxically, Popper's stance against historical determinism led Pocock to adopt a view that countered the notion of fixed laws in history. Yet I struggle with the irony that Popper's approach, which I admire for its openness to critique myths, veered into politically charged territory when he tied a chain of ideas from Plato to 20th century atrocities, seeking to implicate certain philosophical traditions. This is precisely what intellectual history should avoid, treating past thinkers like pawns in a political or philosophical game. I've encountered students who argue that there must be some objective truth embedded in historical accounts. To me, this viewpoint seems to be driven by the belief that questioning the established narrative is an exercise in pettiness. However, I see our role as historians as that of mythbusters. If we genuinely aim to fortify our comprehension of the past, it's imperative that we dissect and scrutinize the myths that history writing often rests upon. My approach to intellectual history hinges on recognizing the interplay between myths, narratives, and historical interpretation. By embracing the complexity and fluidity of these dynamics, we uncover a layer of historical inquiry that enriches our understanding of the human experience. One point of contention within intellectual history that I'd like to address is the sometimes unrelenting uses and abuses of Marxism as both a methodology and an ideology. It's a situation that I find troubling and detrimental. The term Marxism is thrown around casually, often accompanied by a chortling that lacks a comprehensive grasp of its nuances, which leaves me concerned about the level of understanding we're fostering. Now, you might wonder if my inclination to question our traditional approaches to intellectual history and the canon of Western thought makes me a Marxist. Could it be that my aspiration to critically examine these established paradigms is in itself a manifestation of Marxist thought? In an era coloured by post-colonial perspectives, I believe that approaching Western thought from a critical and provocative angle is not only valid, but essential. Such an approach serves to enhance the importance of the ideas we hold dear today, especially when they've weathered the tests of time. My own explorations have led me to analyse ideas dialectically, especially in the context of discussions on race and feminism. This method has proved to be fruitful in breaking out of the confines of a comfortable intellectual environment. If there's one thing Althusser has taught us, it's that there is no innocent reading of history. We have a responsibility to challenge the seemingly unassailable interpretations of the past that emerge from a Western perspective. My views on this matter are a work in progress, and I anticipate that they will evolve over time. However, I feel compelled to address the tendency to label Marxism as a broad adversary of intellectual history. This oversimplification has genuinely frustrated me over the past year. I find little utility in such a stance. In fact, it seems to yield nothing but futility. Such reductive thinking dismisses the rich tapestry of Marxist thought, which has contributed substantially to our understanding of historical and social dynamics. In essence, what I advocate is an open and respectful engagement with diverse intellectual perspectives, including Marxism. Let's move away from treating it as a monolithic other, and instead recognise the nuanced insights it brings to the table. After all, isn't the essence of intellectual history about probing, challenging, and enriching our comprehension of the past through the lens of a variety of viewpoints? As we navigate the intricate corridors of history, we mustn't shy away from difficult conversations, but rather embrace them for the growth and enlightenment they can bring. And with that, we conclude this episode's exploration into the world of intellectual history. As we ponder these questions and delve deeper into the realm of ideas, remember that history is a complex tapestry woven from the threads of many perspectives. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep discovering the intricate intellectual threads that lie beyond the text.